Dead America, Tales from Las Vegas, The Coalition by Derek Slayton. Chapter 1. Connor walked around the front yard of his new residence within the neighborhood he and his group had secured. The morning sun warmed his face as he looked up to the sky, the large bodyguard savoring the moment of peace. Birds chirped from somewhere nearby, their songs cutting through the silence that had settled over the suburb. He stood motionless for a solid minute, doing a series of deep breathing exercises to center himself, and giving the sun time to do its thing. The last few weeks had been chaotic and violent, and he savored every moment of peace he had. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. The rhythm was calming, grounding him in the present moment rather than letting his mind drift to the horrors he'd witnessed. "Morning, big fella," a voice called out from behind him. Connor turned around to see Julia walking towards him from the front of the house, carrying a cup in her hand. She was dressed in practical clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Morning, Julia," Connor said. "We're fresh out of coffee, but I managed to scrounge up some tea. The box says it has caffeine in it, so at least it has that going for it," Julia said. Connor let out a chuckle as he graciously took the mug from her. He gave it a sip, the hot liquid warming his insides like the sun had done to his skin. The taste was different from what he was used to, slightly bitter with a hint of something floral, but it wasn't bad. "That's just what the doctor ordered," Connor said. He took another sip, wincing as he raised his arm this time. The movement pulled at something deep in the muscle, causing Julia some concern. She stepped closer, her brow furrowing. "Are you all right?" Julia asked. Connor used his free hand to massage the sore spot on his arm. He nodded as he spoke, working his fingers into the tight muscle. "Yeah, just the cost of overuse," Connor said. "You know, you can take a day off, right? There's plenty of other people who can pick up the slack," Julia said. "A little pain never hurt anybody," Connor said. Julia gave Connor a confused look at his statement, giving him a moment of pause. The absurdity of what he'd just said hit him, and both of them laughed a bit. "Well, you know what I mean," Connor said. "Sounds like your brain needs a day off too," Julia said. "There will be time to rest once we get this city secure," Connor said. "Connor?" Julia started. He could hear the concern in her voice, the worry that he was pushing himself too hard. She wasn't wrong, but there was too much work to be done, too many people counting on him. "I appreciate the concern, but you have my word that I will take some time off if I get too worn down," Connor said. "You better, because you're not going to do anybody any good dead," Julia said. Connor drank some more of his tea, savoring it. The warmth spread through his chest, easing some of the tension he'd been carrying. He turned when he heard footsteps coming up the road behind him, spotting two figures approaching from the direction of the gate. Naomi was in her early 20s, athletic, carrying a softball bat that was leaning against her shoulder. Matt was easily a decade older, shorter and stockier, carrying a large wrench. Both of them looked ready for whatever the streets had to throw at them. "Morning, boss," Naomi said. "What's on the agenda this morning?" Matt asked. "Midnight Mike texted over an address for us to go check out. Says there's 3 people who want to hitch a ride to someplace a little safer," Connor said. "We're on you, boss. Just say the word and we're out of here," Naomi said. Connor turned the mug up, downing the rest of the tea in a single gulp. He let out a forced sigh at the hotness, which was a little much for him. The liquid burned all the way down, but he didn't mind. He handed the mug back to Julia. "You 3 be safe out there. If you want to swing back by around noon, I'll have a lunch packed up for you," Julia said. "I like my steak medium rare with a splash of horseradish," Matt said. Matt spoke in a joking manner, prompting Julia to smirk as she responded. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're sold out of the steak at the moment. However, I would be more than happy to cut the crust off of your peanut butter sandwich if you like," Julia said. "That would be perfect, thank you," Matt said. "Come on, let's get moving," Connor said. The 3 of them walked to the rear of the house, which bordered on the exterior of the neighborhood. 2 ladders were propped against the wall, with a lone guard sitting on top of the elevated brick. The man looked down at them as they approached, giving a small wave. "How are we looking out there?" Connor asked. "Been a quiet morning, Connor. Had a couple of stragglers, but nothing else," the guard said. "Let's hope that's a sign of things to come today," Connor said. Naomi smacked Connor on the arm, though not hard enough to cause any real pain. She pointed a finger at him in mock warning. "I swear to God, boss, if you jinx us," Naomi said. Connor let out a laugh as they began climbing the ladders over the wall. He went first, his boots finding purchase on the rungs as he ascended. The wall was 8 feet high, just tall enough to keep the zombies from getting a grip on the top. Once he reached the summit, he swung his legs over and dropped down into the truck bed below, landing with a heavy thud. Naomi and Matt followed suit, jumping down into the truck. Connor moved to the cab and got behind the wheel while the other two stayed in the bed. He could hear them shuffling around, getting settled. Naomi and Matt looked down, making sure that the collection of spears were secure in the back before giving the roof a smack. The sound echoed through the cab. "We're good back here," Matt called out. "Let's get after it then," Connor said. He started the truck up, the engine rumbling to life. Connor put it into gear and headed out, guiding the vehicle through the empty streets. They moved at a brisk pace through the neighborhood, which was littered with the bodies of the dead. The creatures they had put down over the past few weeks had been pulled to the side of the road, leaving their route clear. Some were piled in heaps, others laid out in neat rows where they'd fallen. Connor took his time driving, looking down each road they passed, shaking his head at the sight of more ghouls wandering about. No matter how many they put down, there always seemed to be more coming out of the woodwork. They moved in small clusters or alone, shambling through yards and between houses with that distinctive dragging gait. The residential area gave way to commercial streets as they drove. Abandoned cars sat at odd angles, some with doors hanging open where people had fled. Connor navigated around the obstacles with practiced ease, keeping the truck moving forward. It took nearly 10 minutes of driving before they got their destination in sight, a small strip mall. The building was single-story, with maybe 6 or 7 storefronts stretched across its length. Connor pulled into the edge of the parking lot, slowing down as he looked out towards where a horde of ghouls were congregating. There were 20 creatures pressed against a boxing gym entrance, none of them aware of their presence yet. They clawed at the door, moaning and pushing against each other in their mindless attempt to get inside. The glass door was holding for now, but Connor could see cracks spiderwebbing across its surface. Connor leaned back and pulled open the window that separated the cab from the truck bed. "Doesn't seem like too many of them," Connor said. "Just pull us up close, boss, and we can handle it from back here," Naomi said. "Are you sure? I can park a little further out and jump back there," Connor said. "A mob that small is barely a workout. Great way to start the day if you ask me," Matt said. "All right, I'll leave it to you then," Connor said. He hit the gas, driving up along the front edge of the strip mall, stopping a few yards short of the mob. The engine noise was more than enough to draw the creature's attention. The zombies turned as one, their vacant eyes locking onto this new source of sound. They moaned and began shambling towards the truck, their arms outstretched. Connor put the truck into park, cutting the engine as he leaned back in his seat, getting comfortable. He glanced in the side mirrors, watching Naomi and Matt get to work. They moved with efficiency, grabbing the spears from where they were stored and positioning themselves at the sides of the truck bed. Each thrust was a kill shot, cracking the skull and destroying the brain. The spears gave them reach and safety, keeping the creatures at a distance while they worked. As the zombies fell to the ground one by one, the next in line stepped up, meeting the same fate. The creatures had no sense of self-preservation, no awareness that they were walking into a slaughter. It barely took 2 minutes for the duo to lay waste to the mob. They looked at the fallen carefully, making sure that each one was down for the count. A few of the bodies twitched, but none of them were getting back up. The parking lot was now covered with corpses, pools of dark blood spreading across the pavement. "We're good back here," Matt called out. Connor gave them a thumbs up before getting out of the truck and walking to the front door of the gym. As he got close, he heard the deadbolt unlatching from the inside, the metallic sound echoing in the quiet. A few seconds later, a young man stepped outside, his fists with chains wrapped around them. The chains were tight against his knuckles, the metal links gleaming in the light. "Thank you so much for coming. I am Santiago," the young man said. "I'm Connor. It's nice to meet you," Connor said. "I have a couple more people inside who are gathering their things," Santiago said. "You might want to grab whatever you need too, because I don't think you'll be coming back here anytime soon," Connor said. Santiago smirked as he raised his fists up, showing the chains wrapped around them. He flexed his fingers, the chains rattling slightly. "I have everything I need right here," Santiago said. Connor got a smile on his face, nodding. He liked this kid already. Anyone who could survive this long, with nothing but chains in their fists, had some real skill. I know exactly where I'm taking you. Chapter 2. Santiago settled into the passenger seat as the two other survivors, a couple, were helped into the back of the truck by Naomi and Matt. The man was middle-aged with graying hair, his wife clinging to his arm as they climbed up. Both looked exhausted, their faces drawn and pale. Once everybody was situated, Connor put the truck into gear and hit the gas. The engine roared to life as they pulled away from the strip mall, leaving the corpses scattered across the parking lot behind them. Santiago adjusted in his seat, the chains around his fists clinking softly as he moved. He looked over at Connor, then back at the road ahead. "I can't thank you enough for risking your lives to come out here for us," Santiago said. "It's kind of what we do these days," Connor said. Santiago nodded, watching the streets pass by through the windshield. They moved through an intersection, the traffic lights going through their routine, even if nobody was there to adhere to them. "I have heard many stories on Mike's show, and I would like to offer my assistance," Santiago said. Connor looked down at the boxer's chain-wrapped fists again, nodding at them. "I assume those aren't just for show?" Connor asked. "I've been a boxer for many years, and I put down a few of those zombies, or however Mike wants to call them. I may not have been the best, but I am better than most," Santiago said. "That's good enough for me. What about your friends back there? Are they good in a fight?" Connor asked. Santiago glanced back through the rear window at the couple huddled together in the truck bed. They looked scared, completely out of their element. He turned back to face forward. "I cannot say for certain, but if I had my choice, they would not be my first pick for backup in a fight. Or second. Or third," Santiago said. He paused for a moment, both men letting out a laugh as they continued driving along. The tension broke, and Santiago relaxed a bit in his seat. Before they could continue, Connor's cell phone rang, the sound coming through the truck's speakers. He clicked it on. "This is Connor," Connor said. "Hey, it's Ruby," a woman's voice came through the speakers. "What you got for me, Ruby?" Connor asked. "Just got an interesting call from Mike. Says he might have another lead on a safe house," Ruby said. "How far away from the restaurant?" Connor asked. 4 miles, maybe 5, Ruby said. Connor did some quick mental calculations, thinking about the route and how long it would take to get there. They had fuel, they had daylight, and they had capable people. It was doable. "Yeah, we got plenty of daylight left. Text it over to me and I'll get to it after we drop our new friends off," Connor said. "Copy that. I'll let Mike know," Ruby said. Connor clicked off the phone. The truck went quiet for a moment, just the sound of the engine and tires on pavement filling the cab. Santiago looked over at Connor, considering what he'd just heard. "So, these rescues, they are going well?" Santiago asked. "They're going slow. Most of the people we rescue are like your friends back there. I'm sure they have wonderful skills that will come in handy down the line, but it doesn't do us much good right now," Connor said. "You need fighters like myself," Santiago said. "We do indeed, Santiago. We do indeed," Connor said. Connor made the turn on the next street, immediately slamming on the brakes as a horde of zombies blocked the way. 100 of them stretched out over the next block, filling the street from sidewalk to sidewalk. They all turned towards the truck as one, their vacant eyes locking onto the vehicle. The moaning started low, but quickly built as more of them joined in. Matt took a knee in the bed of the truck, leaning down to talk through the window that separated the cab from the bed. "We might need your help with this group if we want to get back in time for lunch," Matt said. "We're going to go around," Ruby called with another potential safe house, Connor said. "Sounds like we should have brought lunch with us," Matt said. "If we find a supercenter, remind me to stock up on brown bags," Connor said. Matt let out a chuckle as Connor put the truck into reverse. The vehicle rolled backward, and Connor spun the wheel to execute a 3-point turn. The horde shambled forward, but they were moving away before the creatures could get close. Connor drove up a few blocks before making the turn to the east, taking them away from the mass of undead. Santiago watched the side streets as they passed, seeing more zombies wandering between houses and through yards. They were everywhere, a constant presence that couldn't be ignored. "So, how many safe houses do you have?" Santiago asked. "Overall? I'm not sure. But we've managed to secure 5 down in this part of town, Connor said. Only 5? I would have thought there would have been more, Santiago said. Connor kept his eyes on the road, navigating around a delivery van that was blocking half the street. He didn't seem offended by the question, just matter of fact in his response. We need a lot of things for a safe house. The position needs to be spacious, well defended, and preferably well stocked. Once we manage to get one secure, we go around the area to rescue who we can. Just like you, Connor said. My apologies. My intent was not to offend with my question, Santiago said. No offense taken, my friend. 5 doesn't sound like a lot, but I assure you that it is, Connor said. Santiago nodded and kept his mouth shut as they continued driving down the streets. Zombies were scattered about, but in smaller packs, allowing them easy passage. A lone creature shambled across the road ahead of them, and Connor simply drove around it. The thing reached out with one arm as they passed, but they were already too far away. After a few more minutes, Connor turned left, revealing a large restaurant in the distance. The building was 2 stories tall with a wide parking lot surrounding it. Even from this distance, Santiago could see that something was different about this place. Unlike the other businesses they had passed, this building was well defended. The outer rim of the parking lot was surrounded by cars parked bumper to bumper, their tires flattened for extra support. The vehicles created a solid wall of metal. As they approached, Santiago could see bodies laying on the ground all around the makeshift defenses, put down over the previous days by the spear-wielding guards that patrolled the tops of the vehicles. The corpses were thick in some areas, stacked 2 or 3 deep where the creatures had pressed against the barricade. Santiago counted 4 guards as they approached, nobody breaking from their designated positions even as they got close. Each one held a spear, scanning the area for threats. Connor pulled up to the barricade, prompting a young man wearing a high school letterman's jacket to jump up top beside a young woman, both of whom looked excited to see Connor. "Oliver, Sophia, how are you two getting along here?" Connor called out. "We're getting along just fine, Connor, just fine," Oliver said. "We're pulling our weight too," Sophia added. "I can see that," Connor said. Santiago looked confused for a moment at these 2 teenagers wielding their blood-soaked spears. The weapons were stained dark, evidence of recent use. He glanced over to Connor, who caught his expression and explained, "I pulled the 2 of them out of a neighborhood last night and brought them here," Connor said. "But they're so young," Santiago said. The words came out before he could stop them. Connor didn't seem bothered by the observation. If anything, he looked proud of the 2 kids standing guard. "They are, and speaking of, Oliver, did you get in touch with your parents?" Connor asked. "I did, and they say that they're happy staying where they are, at least for the time being. The house is secure and they have plenty of food. They know other people need help more than they do," Oliver said. "That's kind of them, but if their situation changes," Connor started. "You'll be the first to know," Oliver finished. Connor nodded as Matt took a knee by the back window. He rapped his knuckles against the glass to get Connor's attention. "I hate to break this up, but we have a lot to get done today," Matt said. "Very true," Connor said. He turned his attention back to the barricade, raising his voice so Matt could hear him clearly. "Matt, if you wouldn't mind helping our 2 guests from the back over to the barricade, we'll be on our way," Connor said. "He's sticking with us?" Matt asked, gesturing towards Santiago. Santiago raised his chain-wrapped fist, holding it up so Matt could see it clearly. "I am Santiago, and I have not had my workout today," Santiago said. Matt looked at the boxer, letting out a chuckle and nodding in agreement. The wrench in his other hand shifted as he moved. "I'm not going to turn down more capable help. We'll be ready to move in just a minute," Matt said. Matt stood back up, turning to help the couple over to the car barricade. Oliver and Sophia moved to assist from the other side, reaching down to pull them up. Santiago looked over, watching as the duo gave him a thankful nod. Both of them knew they would be dead if it wasn't for his actions, and the gratitude came through. Santiago gave a nod back before turning to Connor. "So how do we do this?" Santiago asked. "I'm glad you asked. We have ranged weapons in the back of the truck that we use in a lot of situations," Connor said. "I'm more of an up-close-and-personal type of fighter," Santiago said. Connor shifted in his seat, turning to face Santiago more directly. His expression was serious, but not unkind. "I figured as much. When we get into a situation, you're going to stick with me," Matt and Naomi work well together, and I don't want to do anything that would throw off their rhythm. We had issues last night with a newcomer, which is why they're now on another team, Connor explained. I understand. I will follow your lead. When you tell me to punch something, I will punch it, Santiago said. Connor cracked a smile as Matt tapped on the roof of the truck, signaling that they were ready to go. The sound echoed through the cab, sharp and clear. That's my kind of fighter. Strap in, because we're about to go find ourselves a fight. Chapter 3. Despite only being a few miles away, the drive to the new destination took half an hour due to the stopping and backtracking to avoid large clusters of zombies. Even though they had been fighting against them for weeks, they had only managed to put down a fraction of the creatures that were overwhelming the city. Every intersection required careful navigation. Every turn, a calculated risk. Connor stopped at the next intersection, looking down the cross street to the left. He let out a sigh of relief when he saw that it was mostly clear of zombies. Only a few stragglers wandered in the distance, far enough away to not be a threat. Naomi poked her head in through the back window. That looks good to me, boss. If we need to stab a few, we can, but we're starting to get motion sickness back here with the constant stops and reversing, Naomi said. I hear you, Naomi. The GPS says we're only a quarter-mile away, Connor said. Connor pointed in the direction of the address, which appeared to go into a residential neighborhood. Everyone paused, staring at the nearby houses in confusion. The homes were typical suburban fare, single and two-story structures with small yards. Nothing that screamed safe house material. Forgive me for asking, but did you not say that the safe houses were large, well-stocked buildings? Santiago asked. I did, Connor said. So, unless there is a castle hiding in the neighborhood. Santiago trailed off, not needing to say anything else. The implication was clear. Something didn't add up. Connor frowned, looking at his phone to double-check the address. It was correct. Well, boss, we're already this far. Might as well check it out, Naomi said. All right, you two get ready, Connor said. Naomi nodded and got back up, as Connor made the turn into the neighborhood. The truck rolled forward, moving past the entrance and onto residential streets lined with trees. There were a smattering of zombies roaming about, a dozen or so spread out across the yards on the first block of the neighborhood. Some wandered aimlessly, while others stood motionless, like broken mannequins. Rather than deal with them, Connor pressed on, following the GPS directions, turning right at the next intersection. They drove 3 blocks, drawing the attention of a handful of creatures who fell into a line behind them, shambling in pursuit. The zombies moved at their slow pace, arms outstretched and moaning. Connor kept an eye on them in the rearview mirror, making sure they weren't getting too close. He stopped half a block up from the address, which was a small single-story house on the right side of the road. That does not look like a safe house. It barely looks big enough for a single person, Santiago said. Despite the small stature of the structure, there were half a dozen zombies pressed up against the house, trying to get inside. They clawed at the walls and pushed against the door, creating a wall of undead flesh. I got a dozen coming up behind us. They'll be here in 60 seconds, Matt called out from the back. Connor stared at the house, trying to make sense of things. The place was unremarkable in every way, just another cookie-cutter home in a subdivision. Why would Mike send us here, saying it was a safe house? Connor asked. He continued staring at the house, eventually seeing the curtains in the living room move to the side. The movement was subtle, but deliberate. It was quickly followed by a flashlight turning on and off, the beam cutting through the window in a signal. Well, someone believes we are in the right spot, Santiago said. Connor nodded his head, looking over to his new friend. The boxer was already loosening up his shoulders, rolling his neck from side to side. How about showing me what you can do with those fists of yours? Connor asked. It would be my pleasure, Santiago said. Santiago opened up the door, Connor throwing the truck into park before getting out. The air was still, quiet except for the distant moaning of zombies. He looked up to Naomi and Matt, both of whom had spears in their hands. We're going to go to the house and see what's going on. Clear them out and keep watch, Connor said. You got it, boss, Naomi said. Connor turned his attention back to the house, watching as Santiago threw a few practice punches in the air to loosen up. The chains rattled with each movement, the metal links catching the light. As the boxer got to the edge of the grass, he smacked his fists together. the metal chain around his hands clanging together. The sound was loud, sharp, echoing across the yard. The half-dozen creatures by the house turned towards him in response, the boxer standing still in the middle of the yard, letting the enemy come to him. He planted his feet, settling into a fighting stance that spoke of years of training. The first creature turned and broke away from the house, excitedly moving across the grass. The zombie's arms were extended, moaning coming from its mouth as it got closer. Santiago didn't budge as it approached, watching it with calm focus. As the ghoul got within arm's reach, the boxer stepped forward and threw a vicious haymaker. The chained fist connected with the side of the creature's head, square in the temple. The impact was devastating, the sound of it like a mallet hitting meat. With a single blow, the zombie was out, like someone had flipped a light switch. The body went limp, collapsing to the ground in a lifeless heap. Santiago backed up a couple of steps as the other zombies got closer. They moved as a group, stumbling over one another in their eagerness to reach him. The next creature stumbled over the fallen ghoul, making the uppercut Santiago through all the more devastating. Connor could hear the cracking of bones from the street, watching the zombie's head snap back before the body fell to the ground, lifeless. The neck bent at an unnatural angle, the creature dropping like a puppet with its strings cut. Santiago spent the next minute bobbing and weaving around the four remaining creatures, stepping up to deliver a killing blow before retreating. It was like watching a violent dance, with only one combatant having the skill to compete. He moved with precision, each punch calculated and efficient. A creature lunged at him from the left, and Santiago pivoted, bringing his right fist around in a devastating hook. The chains wrapped around his knuckles added weight to the blow, caving in the side of the zombie's skull. It dropped without a sound. The remaining three spread out, trying to corner him without any conscious thought. Santiago didn't give them the chance. He stepped forward, feinting left, before driving his right fist straight into a zombie's face. The nose collapsed, bone fragments driving deep into the brain. Another one down. Two left. They came at him together, and Santiago danced between them. He threw a jab at the first, connecting with its jaw and snapping its head to the side. The follow-up cross caught it in the temple, and it went down hard. The final creature reached for him with grasping hands, and Santiago ended it with a powerful uppercut that lifted the ghoul off its feet before it crashed to the ground. As Santiago delivered the final blow, Connor clapped his hands, giving the boxer well-deserved praise. "That was a hell of a display, Santiago," Connor said. "Just wait until I am warmed up," Santiago said. Connor chuckled at the man's bravado. If most people had that kind of self-confidence, Connor would have dismissed it. But he got the sense that the boxer could back it up. The evidence was scattered across the lawn in front of them. The two men turned their attention towards the house when they heard the front door being unlocked. The deadbolt slid free with a metallic click. A moment later, it opened, revealing a woman in her early 50s with graying hair standing there. She looked relieved, her face breaking into a wide smile. "Oh, thank the good Lord above. I didn't think I was ever getting out of here," the woman said. "I'm Connor. This is Santiago," Connor said. "The name's Savannah. I'm guessing you're here because Midnight Mike told you about the safe house?" Savannah asked. Connor and Santiago shared a confused look before turning back to her. The question didn't match what they were seeing. "Forgive me for saying, ma'am, while this is a lovely home, it does not appear to be suitable for a safe house," Santiago said. Savannah let out a belly laugh, needing to put her hand on the doorframe for support. The sound was loud and genuine, echoing across the yard. It took a moment for her to gather herself and continue talking. "Oh, you are just the cutest little thing, aren't you? Of course, this ain't the safe house. I know I'm not the brightest bulb in the bunch, but I'm not that dense," Savannah said. "Okay, so you know someplace that might work?" Connor asked. "Oh, honey, do I ever. The place is about a mile from here, my job to be exact. Or it used to be my job at any rate," Savannah said. She pulled out a set of keys, dangling them from her fingers. The metal jingled, catching the light as they swayed. "But paycheck or not, I guarantee these still work," Savannah said. "So where do you work?" Connor asked. "A big old storage unit building. Takes up a whole block and is 5 stories tall. Got a big fence around the lot too, so it's got all the protection you'd ever need," Savannah said. Connor's interest was piqued. That sounded more like what they needed. The size and the fence were both big positives. But there was still one critical element missing. The building sounds fantastic, but in order for it to work for our needs, we're going to need food and a lot of it. I don't know if we have the manpower to stock it up, Connor said. Savannah's smile grew wider, like she'd been waiting for this exact question. Oh, honey, that's the best part, and something I made very clear to Mike when I chatted with him. We got a big new client at the beginning of the month. You see, one of the local food banks was changing their location, but there was going to be a bit of a gap between leaving their old building and moving into their new one, which means they needed a place to store all of that food, Savannah explained. Connor and Santiago exchanged a hopeful look. This was sounding better by the second. How much food? Santiago asked. I don't have an exact count for you or anything. I just know they rented 10 units from us, Savannah said. Connor got a smirk on his face. 10 units full of food from a food bank would be massive. That could feed dozens of people for months if managed properly. Now tell me, boys, does that sound like the kind of place you want to go take a look at? Savannah asked. Yes, ma'am, I believe it is, Connor said. Well, hot diggity, let me grab my bag and we'll be on the way. Chapter 4. Savannah sat in the middle of the front seat, squeezed in between Connor and Santiago, grinning the entire drive over. Despite the cramped conditions and the world falling apart around them, she looked genuinely happy to be there. I haven't been outside since all of this began. It's just nice to see the sunlight again, Savannah said. I assume that opening windows was not a possibility? Santiago asked. Lord, no, honey. I looked out my window one time, and one of those people saw me. Spent the next 3 days listening to them play freestyle jazz drums on the glass. Thank the good Lord I stocked up on ibuprofen before all this started, Savannah said. Both Santiago and Connor let out a chuckle as she pointed out the next turn. Her finger extended toward an intersection ahead, directing them to the right. It's going to be about 4 blocks up on the right. You can't miss it, Savannah said. Connor nodded as he hit the gas. However, he kept the speed low. The truck moved at a cautious pace, allowing them time to scan the surroundings. As he got a block up, he came to a full stop. Is everything okay? Savannah asked. Something is off, Connor said. He knocked on the back window, getting the attention of Naomi, who took a knee. She leaned down, looking through the glass at Connor. What do you got, boss? Naomi asked. The street ahead seem empty to you? Connor asked. Naomi looked ahead, spotting businesses on either side of the road. A convenience store sat dark and quiet on one corner, a dry cleaner on the other. However, there were virtually no zombies. They could only see half a dozen at most, scattered across the next few blocks. Way too empty, Naomi said. Well, that's good, ain't it? Savannah asked. Those things love noise. It gets them to congregate together. If the street is this empty, it means there's a crowd roaming around, Connor explained. His tone was measured but carried an edge of concern. In his experience, empty streets meant the zombies were somewhere else, probably in large numbers. Then, we best get somewhere a little more protected than a pickup truck, Savannah said. She's right. We'll be on the lookout, Naomi said. Naomi stood back up as Connor began inching forward again. He picked up speed, going down the street towards the storage unit building. His eyes moved constantly, scanning the storefronts and alleyways for any sign of the missing horde. He stopped again as soon as the parking lot came within view. Son of a bitch, Connor said. The group looked across the intersection to the fenced-in parking lot of the storage unit. The facility was massive, just as Savannah had described. 5 stories of concrete and metal stretched up toward the sky, taking up most of the block. But the main gate was standing wide open, an invitation to anything that wanted to wander inside. There were 4 cars in the lot, the door of one hanging open. 24 creatures were roaming around, some by the cars, but most pressed up against the 6-foot-tall chain-link fence, unable to figure out how to get free. They pushed and clawed at the barrier, trapped by their own lack of intelligence. It appears as though we are not the only ones with this idea, Santiago said. Savannah looked closer at the cars, shaking her head when she recognized one of them. It was a sedan, pale blue with a dent in the rear bumper. That's Mr. Richardson's car, the blue one there with the door wide open, Savannah said. Your boss? Connor asked. He was the manager, but I did everything, so not really a boss if you know what I mean, Savannah said. I've worked for plenty of them over the years. I know all too well, Connor said. Is he someone that will welcome our presence? Santiago asked. Honey, if I was a betting woman, and let's face it, I live in Vegas so you know darn well that I am, I'd wager that Mr. Richardson didn't make it through the first night of this, Savannah said. What makes you say that? Connor asked. Well, his idea of cardio was lifting his flask to his mouth, so there's no way he was going to outrun any of those fast ones, Savannah said. She let out a laugh to herself as she continued, the humor helping her cope with the reality of the situation. I'm not sure he could outrun the slow ones for that matter. Besides that, if he was alive and had made it inside, that gate would be closed, Savannah said. It's an automatic gate, Connor asked. There's a punch code box for it outside, but the manager code leaves it open for business hours. There's a manual switch inside that you can flick if you're going on a smoke break. So if that gate is open, he didn't make it inside, Savannah explained. I do not mean to discredit your story, ma'am, but someone made it inside. Look at the front door, Santiago said. The other two focused their attention on the glass door at the building's entrance. It was ajar. The glass shattered into a spider web pattern. A zombie shambled through from the inside, as if on cue. The creature moved with that distinctive shuffle, pushing the door open wider as it emerged. Connor shook his head, knocking on the back window to get the attention of those in the back. Matt took a knee this time, his wrench resting on his shoulder. What are we dealing with? Matt asked. A shit show. We have some stragglers in the parking lot and an unknown number inside the building, Connor said. If you and Boxer Boy can handle the inside, Naomi and I can clear the lot, Matt said. And what about me? Savannah asked. You just sit there and keep looking pretty, Matt said. Matt gave her a playful wink before standing back up. Savannah blushed a bit, giggling at the attention. That boy thinks it's a game now, but he's going to have a change of heart when he realizes I'm a cougar, Savannah said. Connor did his best to stifle a laugh. Santiago turned to look at her, his expression genuinely confused. Cougars are fierce. Why do you not fight? Santiago asked. Savannah began to answer, but Connor interrupted her, raising a hand. I'll have the birds and bees talk with him later. Right now, we gotta fight, Connor said. Savannah playfully locked her lips, miming turning a key and throwing it away. She gave him a wink as Connor hit the gas, picking up speed towards the parking lot of the storage unit building. The truck accelerated, closing the distance quickly. As soon as he got close to the building, he slammed on the brakes. The tires squealed, and he cut the engine. Santiago, you're with me. Let's move, Connor said. Connor and Santiago exited the cab of the truck as Naomi and Matt leapt down from the back. The two of them had spears in their hands, already moving into position. They fanned out, preparing to deal with the zombies in the lot. We got the lot! Get that gate closed, Naomi called out. Santiago led the charge to the building, confronting the first zombie that had shambled outside. The creature was a woman in business attire, her clothing torn and stained. He rushed to it, stopping just short and delivering a fury of blows to its head. A 3-punch combination was all it took for its skull to crack. Left jab, right cross, left hook. The zombie dropped to the pavement, its body going limp. Connor pulled a knife from a sheath on his belt, taking point and going through the front door. The lobby was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, with a counter on one side and an office door on the other. He was met with 2 creatures lined up, one behind the other, both turning toward him as he entered. He grabbed onto the shirt of the lead creature, using his substantial power to drive it back into the other one. The momentum carried both zombies backward until they hit the wall. He pushed them there, keeping them pinned as he began stabbing at their heads. The blade drove into the first one's skull, punching through bone. He yanked it free and went for the second. The zombie arms flailed about, smacking at him, but ultimately proved to be no threat to him. Their movements were uncoordinated, more nuisance than danger. He finished them both quickly, the body slumping to the floor. Santiago stepped up, spotting a large zombified man coming out of an office. The creature was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, and built like a linebacker. With a single blow to the side of its head, the ghoul fell to the ground. Its weight crashed down, breaking a side table in the process. Wood splintered, and the table collapsed under the impact. Connor looked over to the hallway that led into the main portion of the storage facility. The corridor stretched back into darkness, but as he watched, the lights inside clicked on. The motion sensors were still working. Figures moved within, revealing half a dozen zombies all shambling towards the lobby where they were. A few seconds passed, and more lights in the distance clicked on, triggered by the motion deeper in the building. He couldn't tell how many creatures were inside, but it was more than they could deal with at the moment. The hallway seemed to go on forever, with zombies appearing from side passages and storage unit aisles. "Connor, you need to get out here," Matt shouted from outside. Connor heard the fear in Matt's voice, something he rarely heard from him. The man had been through enough to stay calm in most situations, which made his tone all the more alarming. "Santiago, get that hallway door shut and locked. We'll deal with that later," Connor said. Santiago nodded and did as instructed. He grabbed the door that separated the lobby from the main building, pulling it shut. The metal door was heavy, designed for security. He threw the deadbolt, sealing it just as the first zombies reached it. They pressed against the barrier, but it held firm. Connor turned and ran out the front door. He looked out to the entrance of the parking lot, his eyes going wide at the sight before him. 100 zombies were bearing down on them, shambling through the open gate. They filled the street, a wall of undead flesh moving with single-minded purpose. "Savannah, get that gate shut." Chapter 5. Connor stood at the front door of the building for several seconds, giving his mind time to assess the situation. The horde was massive, far larger than anything they had dealt with today. Both Naomi and Matt had rushed over to the front gate, doing everything they could to stem the tide with their spears. Both of them stood a few yards inside the perimeter, stabbing at the heads of the creatures, putting them down, only to have them replaced by the next in line. It was like trying to hold back the ocean with a bucket. For every zombie that fell, 2 more pushed forward to take its place. Connor saw movement on the right side of the lot, inside the fence. A lone zombie shambled between 2 parked cars, moving toward the truck. He casually stepped away from the building, reaching to his waistline and drawing his handgun. The weapon came up smoothly, muscle memory taking over. He quickly took aim, firing a single round. The shot echoed across the parking lot, and the zombie dropped. Connor marched over to the truck, pointing to Savannah. She was still sitting in the passenger seat, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. He spoke in a calm yet forceful manner. "The lobby is clear. Get inside and close those gates," Connor said. Savannah quickly got out of the truck, moving towards the building as she spoke. Her earlier playfulness was gone, replaced by urgency. "The gate has a safety sensor. If anything is in the way, it'll just open right back up," Savannah said. "I'll make sure it's clear," Connor said. Savannah didn't question it, rather running inside to get into position. Her footsteps echoed as she crossed the lobby, heading for the office where the controls were located. Connor picked up the pace, marching towards the front gate where both Naomi and Matt had a couple of zombies impaled on their spears. They were using them as mobile barricades, shifting the bodies back and forth to keep the mob at bay. The spear shafts flexed under the strain, but held firm. Connor stopped in the middle of them, leaving a few yards on either side for clearance. The zombies pressed forward, moaning and reaching through the gate. He aimed his handgun at the center of the mob, opening fire. The bullets came quick, but the fire was controlled. No panic in his movement, just steady trigger pulls. Each shot was a kill shot, dropping the zombies just behind where the gate would close. The brass casings clinked on the pavement as they ejected from the weapon. He adjusted his aim for the final few shots, taking down zombies right behind the ones that his teammates were dealing with. "When is that gate going to close?" Naomi asked. She grunted with effort, pushing her spear forward to drive back a zombie that was getting too close. Sweat beaded on her forehead, despite the cool air. "We have to clear the path," Connor said. Connor dropped the empty magazine from his handgun, slapping in a fresh one. The motion was automatic, practiced through countless hours at the range. He fired a couple more shots, downing 2 more creatures. However, there were still dozens crowding around the gate. The bodies were piling up, but not fast enough. Before he could decide on the next course of action, he heard a car starting up behind him. The engine roared to life, the sound cutting through the moaning of the dead. Connor turned around to see Santiago sitting behind the wheel of one of the sedans, waving frantically at him through the windshield. "Our new friend has an idea. Get ready to move," Connor shouted. Santiago revved the engine a couple of times, making sure Naomi and Matt heard it. The sound was loud, aggressive. Both of them glanced back to see the boxer throw the car into gear. The tires spun ever so slightly as he accelerated. kicking up small clouds of dust from the parking lot. The sedan picked up speed quickly, the driver's side door hanging open as he approached the gate. Santiago had one hand on the wheel, the other braced against the doorframe. The three defenders scattered, Connor diving out of the way just as the front edge of the car passed him. He hit the ground hard, rolling to the side. At the last possible second, Santiago leapt from the vehicle, launching himself through the open door. He landed hard on the pavement, his shoulder taking the brunt of the impact. His body rolled to a stop near the others. He looked up to watch as the sedan plowed through the middle of the zombie horde. Bodies flew through the air from the impact, tumbling like rag dolls. The car bounced as a couple of bodies were pulled underneath, dragged along the concrete. The sound of bones breaking and metal scraping filled the air. The sedan crashed through the crowd, momentum carrying it across the street until it slammed into a parked vehicle on the opposite side. The engine noise pulled the creatures at the back away from the gate, drawing them toward the crash. They shambled after the sound, leaving only a handful of zombies still threatening to get inside. The strategy had worked, thinning the horde at the critical point. Connor quickly sprung to his feet, brushing debris from his clothes. He aimed his handgun and popped off a trio of rounds in rapid succession, just like he was at the practice range. His stance was solid, his breathing controlled. His aim was true, blowing out the back of the encroaching zombie heads, dropping them where they stood. A split second later, the gate began to slide closed. The motor hummed as it pulled the barrier across the opening. "Get those bodies out of the way!" Connor shouted. Naomi and Matt darted back to their spears, which were still impaling zombies that were shambling around near the entrance. The creatures were stuck on the weapons, unable to free themselves. Both defenders grabbed their spears, straining as they shoved the creatures to the side, keeping them away from the closing gate. The bodies scraped across the pavement, leaving dark smears. Santiago was sore, but managed to scramble back to his feet. He ran over to the closing gate, moving as fast as his bruised body would allow. He focused his attention on two corpses laying in the gate's path. They were fresh kills, still twitching slightly. He grabbed onto their legs, letting out a grunt as he pulled them back. The weight was substantial, dead weight being the heaviest kind. The noise being made by the gate drew the attention of a few creatures at the back of the pack, pulling them back in that direction and away from the now wrecked car across the street. They turned, drawn by the mechanical sound. Connor calmly walked up, taking aim through the narrowing opening. He put them down with well-placed shots, each round finding its mark. The leader stood tall, his weapon at the ready as he covered the last few feet of the gate closing. His eyes scanned the opening, watching for any last threats. Once the gate was securely in place with a final metallic clang, he relaxed. He holstered his weapon, the leather creaking as the gun slid home. "That was a hell of a daredevil move there, Santiago," Connor said. The boxer rubbed his sore shoulder from where it had landed on the pavement. He rotated his arm, testing the range of motion. Nothing felt broken, but he'd be feeling that tomorrow. "Yes, it is not a move I thought through particularly well," Santiago said. "Speaking from experience, that's probably the best way to execute stupid moves," Connor said. Both men paused for a moment before breaking into laughter. The tension of the last few minutes released, coming out in amusement at the absurdity of it all. Their moment was interrupted as they looked over to Naomi and Matt, both of whom were using knives to put down the creatures stuck on their spears. As the ghouls fell, they yanked their ranged weapons free. The spear tips came loose with wet sounds, and everyone in the lot breathed a sigh of relief. The worst was over, at least for now. "Well, that was fun," Matt said. His tone was dry, sarcastic. He wiped the blade of his knife on his pants before sheathing it. "Keep that same energy for when we go inside," Connor said. "Is it that bad in there, boss?" Naomi asked. "I didn't really have a lot of time to assess the situation, but we still have work to do," Connor said. Naomi and Matt both let out disgruntled sighs before everyone walked into the lobby of the building. Their boots crunched on broken glass as they entered. They were greeted by Savannah, who had dropped her rosy, playful demeanor. Her face was serious, drawn. Something was wrong. "I know I just met you, Savannah, but I'm pretty sure you don't have good news for me," Connor said. "I wish I did, honey. Come on, I got something you need to see," Savannah said. Savannah led them into one of the offices, where a computer was set up in the corner. The room was small, cramped with filing cabinets and a desk. On the monitor was a dozen security camera views, each showing a different part of the building. She defeatedly pointed to the screen. "I don't know what kind of party Mr. Richardson was throwing here, but there were a lot of guests," Savannah said. The group looked at the monitor, which showed a few dozen zombies roaming around the building. They were on every floor, wandering through hallways and storage unit corridors. Some stood motionless, while others shambled about aimlessly. The cameras cycled through different views, each one revealing more of the undead presence. Connor leaned closer, studying the feeds. He counted at least 40 creatures visible on the screens, and there were likely more in blind spots the cameras didn't cover. This was going to be a long fight. "Naomi, Matt, go get your close-range weapons. We've got a fight on our hands." Chapter 6. The group stood around in the lobby, getting mentally prepared for the fight ahead of them. The adrenaline from the parking lot battle was still pumping through their veins, but now they had to shift focus to what waited inside. Naomi and Matt warmed up with their bat and wrench respectively, swinging them through the air in controlled arcs. Connor paced back and forth, deep in thought. His boots made soft sounds on the tile floor as he walked, his mind working through different scenarios. Santiago shadowboxed in the corner, keeping himself loose. His chains rattled with each punch, the sound rhythmic and steady. Despite the soreness in his shoulder from his earlier stunt with the car, he moved with fluid precision. The boxer's eyes were focused, his breathing controlled. "Savannah, is there anything we need to know about the layout of the building?" Connor asked. He stopped pacing, turning to face her. She was standing near the office door, watching the security monitors through the open doorway. "It's pretty simple. As soon as you're through the door, there the hallway goes straight ahead and to the left. It goes around entire building in a square, with 2 hallways in the middle," Savannah said. She stepped closer, using her hands to illustrate the layout in the air. Her fingers traced the shape of the building, showing how the corridors connected. "What about stairs?" Connor asked. "There's an emergency stairwell on all corners. There's an elevator on the opposite corner if you don't feel like hiking," Savannah said. "I'd rather hike than risk getting trapped in there," Matt said. His tone made it clear that elevators were off the table. The thought of being stuck in a metal box with zombies was nobody's idea of a good time. Savannah thought about it for a moment, before nodding in agreement. She'd seen enough horror movies to know that elevators and zombie outbreaks didn't mix well. "What about an alarm? Something that can cover the noise we make so we don't get swarmed?" Naomi asked. She stopped swinging her bat, resting it against her shoulder. Her eyes were sharp, already thinking tactically about how to handle the situation. "There's fire alarms, but they're automatic. So unless you want to start a blaze, that's not going to do you much good," Savannah said. "What about a security alarm?" Santiago asked. He paused his shadowboxing, turning to face the conversation. Sweat had started to bead on his forehead from the warm-up routine. Savannah thought for a moment before shaking her head. Her expression showed she'd considered it, but found problems with the idea. "Oh, I can definitely trigger one of those from the office. Of course everybody in a half-mile radius will hear it," Savannah said. Santiago shook his head in defeat as Connor entered the debate. The big man stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "We'll be fine once we get past the door here. They're spread out, and as long as we move as a team, we'll be able to take them down," Connor said. His voice carried confidence, the kind that came from experience. He'd done this before, fought his way through buildings full of the dead. "Is there not a loading dock? I can't imagine the customers come through here," Naomi asked. "There is one, but it's on the other side of the building, and you have to go back out to the street to get there," Savannah said. Naomi muttered curses under her breath as Connor stepped up. Going back outside wasn't an option, not with that horde still wandering around the front gate. "It's okay, I got a plan. We're going to use the spears to drive them back. Push through them and into the open," Connor said. Naomi and Matt exchanged a glance, having a silent debate with one another about the feasibility of that plan. They had worked together long enough to communicate without words. After a few moments, they nodded in agreement. "All right, boss, we can do that," Naomi said. "We're ready when you are," Matt said. Connor nodded, motioning towards the door that led to the main building. The metal barrier stood closed, the only thing separating them from the zombies on the other side. He could hear faint sounds coming from beyond it, the shuffling of feet and low moaning. The motion prompted the duo to grab all of their weapons. Naomi picked up her spear first, testing its weight before collecting her bat. Matt did the same with his equipment, making sure everything was secure. They headed to the hallway door, taking positions on either side of it. Connor and Santiago lined up behind them, with Savannah bringing up the rear. The formation was tight, everyone knowing their role. They moved with the coordination of people who'd fought together before, even though Santiago was new to the group. "Savannah, we'll clear the door, but you're going to have to push it shut. Can you handle that?" Connor asked. "Honey, I've spent 30 years in customer service. I know how to slam a door in the face of an unruly customer," Savannah said. She gave him a wink, prompting laughter from Connor. The tension broke for just a moment, everyone appreciating the levity before things got serious again. "Okay, Santiago, you're on door duty," Connor said. The boxer nodded and slipped past the two spear wielders, moving carefully so he didn't interfere with their weapons. He took a knee beside the door, making sure that the tips of the spears were above him. The position put him low to the ground, out of the way, but ready to act. He looked back to Naomi and Matt, who gave him a thumbs up. "Here we go, my friends," Santiago said. Santiago reached over, grabbing onto the doorknob. His chain-wrapped hand gripped it tight. He took a deep breath, steadying himself for what was about to happen. Then he yanked it open. As the door came his way, two zombies stumbled through it, drawn by the sudden movement and light from the lobby. They were immediately met by the tips of the spears that were being thrust upwards. The weapons caught the creatures in the chest, punching straight through and into the ghouls directly behind them. The spear points emerged from the backs of the first two zombies, continuing their trajectory into the second row. Both Naomi and Matt stood up from their crouched positions, angling the weapons down for leverage on the ghouls. They planted their feet wide, using their body weight to maintain control. The zombies were effectively pinned on the spears now, unable to move forward or fall. Naomi and Matt made sure that the spears didn't move further through the zombies, keeping them at the perfect distance. Both of them let out yells as they pushed, doing their best to summon the strength necessary to move the creatures back through the pack behind them. Their muscles strained, veins standing out on their necks from the effort. The zombies on their spears acted like battering rams, forcing the others backward. The zombies stumbled as they were shoved, their shambling gaits unable to maintain balance against the force. Within seconds, the duo pushed through the doorway and into the hallway beyond. The corridor opened up, giving them more room to maneuver. Naomi glanced to her left, watching two zombies reaching out for her. Their decaying hands made contact with her arm, fingers starting to close around her bicep. Before they could grab on, Connor was through the door, firing his handgun at near point-blank range. The muzzle flash lit up the hallway in brief bursts. His shots cut through the heads of the attacking creatures, dropping them and buying them the space they needed to get through. The bodies crumpled to the floor, no longer a threat. Santiago was the last out of the door, keeping his head low as he kept pace with the others. He glanced back to see Savannah slamming the door shut with both hands, throwing her weight into it. The metal door closed with a solid thunk, and he heard the lock engage. She'd gotten it secure. The four of them pushed on for 10 yards before Naomi and Matt shoved their spear-trapped zombies to either side of the hallway. The bodies flew sideways, still impaled on the weapons. They continued to run a few more yards before stopping. They readied their bat and wrench respectively as Connor holstered his sidearm, drawing his knife from its sheath. The blade came free with a whisper of metal on leather. Rather than join them in formation, Santiago veered off to the left. He moved with purpose, closing the distance to one of the speared zombies that Naomi had thrown aside. He delivered a haymaker to the head of the creature, his chain-wrapped fist connecting with devastating force. The zombie's skull caved in from the impact, ending its threat. The body went limp, sliding off the spear shaft. Naomi stepped over, taking care of the other one that Matt had discarded. Her bat came down hard on its head, the aluminum making a hollow sound as it connected. Matt made short work of the other entangled creatures on his side, using his wrench to crack skulls with brutal efficiency. The four of them lined up shoulder to shoulder, watching as the mob they had just pushed through regained their footing. A dozen zombies in total stood between them and the rest of the hallway. The creatures shuffled forward, arms outstretched and moaning with hunger. The sound echoed off the concrete walls. "Naomi, Matt, push the center back. Santiago and I will cover the outside," Connor said. The duo exchanged a fist bump, their knuckles meeting with a solid thump. Both of them stepped up, getting shoulder to shoulder as the shambling horde got closer. They moved in sync, weeks of working together showing in their coordination. Once the zombies were within striking distance, they darted forward, using the bat and large wrench as lances, the tops of their makeshift weapons buried in the chests of the creatures, driving them backwards to the ground. The impact sent the zombies sprawling, their bodies hitting the floor hard. As soon as the ghouls fell, Naomi and Matt retreated, giving the other two room to work. They pulled their weapons free and stepped back into formation. Santiago took the left side, focusing on two zombies near the wall. The creatures were pressed against the concrete, trying to navigate around their fallen comrades. He went into a frenzy, his training taking over. He delivered a forceful haymaker to the lead zombie, the chains adding weight to the blow. The creature's head snapped to the side from the impact. Before it could recover, Santiago quickly adjusted his stance and threw a combination of headshots. Left jab, right cross, left hook, right uppercut. Each impact broke bone, his fists moving faster than the zombies could react. The final punch cracked the skull, and the creature dropped. The second zombie met a similar fate, Santiago's hands moving in a blur of chain and flesh. Connor used his blade to great effect on the other side of the hallway. He jammed it into the skull of the lead creature, the knife punching through bone with a sickening crunch. He grabbed onto the zombie's shoulder with his free hand, using the lifeless corpse as a shield. The body held up the other ghoul just long enough for Connor to free his blade with a hard yank. He delivered another kill shot, the knife finding the second zombie's temple. Both creatures fell in a heap. Once the 4 zombies were down for the count, they retreated, giving Naomi and Matt room to move up. The two of them advanced on the zombies that were still on the ground, struggling to get up. Both of them raised their weapons high, bringing them down with force on the tops of the heads. Bone cracked and skulls split under the blows. They moved methodically, making sure each zombie stayed down permanently. In a flash, the majority of the threat had been eliminated. Santiago and Connor moved up, dispatching the remaining zombies with ease. The hallway fell quiet except for their heavy breathing. Bodies littered the floor, the concrete slick with blood. With the immediate threat removed, the group took a moment to catch their breath. The fight had been intense but controlled, everyone working together seamlessly. Naomi and Matt freed their spears from the bodies of the dead, pulling them loose with wet sounds. They readied the weapons for battle once again, checking the shafts for damage. "All right, let's sweep this floor, then move up to the next one. We got this." Chapter 7. Santiago and Connor stepped out of the stairwell onto the 5th floor of the storage unit building, looking both directions for zombies. The corridor stretched in either direction, the fluorescent lights overhead flickering occasionally. They spotted 3 creatures to their left, shambling around near a row of storage units. The rest of the floor was bathed in darkness, the motion sensor lights not yet triggered by their presence. The two of them casually walked in the direction of the creatures, not an ounce of urgency on either of them. After 4 floors of clearing zombies, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm. The 5th floor was the last one, and these 3 were the final obstacles between them and a secure building. "So, how are your hands holding up?" Connor asked. He glanced over at Santiago, noticing how the boxer flexed his fingers between fights. The chains wrapped around his knuckles had served him well, but Connor knew that kind of repetitive trauma had to take a toll. "My hands?" Santiago asked. "Yeah, your hands. You're punching skulls with chains wrapped around your fists. I can't imagine it's that comfortable," Connor said. Santiago let out a laugh, shaking his head a bit as he held up his fists to show them off. The chains gleamed in the overhead lights, the metal links worn smooth from years of use. There were dark stains on them now, evidence of the day's work. "These are my meal ticket, my friend. They have been such since I was 15, and I have done everything in my power to condition them to withstand all manner of beating," Santiago said. "Fair enough, but I'm pretty sure there's some ibuprofen in the office if you need it," Connor said. "Oh, I will definitely take you up on that. My hands may be conditioned for every fight that comes my way, but the rest of my body does ache a bit. I do not usually leap from a moving vehicle when I'm in the ring," Santiago said. Both men cracked a smile, breaking into laughter as they approached the last trio of zombies within the building. The creatures had heard them now, turning toward the sound, their vacant eyes locked onto the two men, and they began moving forward with that distinctive shuffle. In an instant, Connor and Santiago switched modes, getting battle ready. The casual conversation ended, replaced by focused silence. Connor moved to the right, while Santiago took the left, splitting the zombies' attention. Connor dispatched two creatures with his blade, the knife work quick and efficient. He grabbed the first zombie by the shoulder, spinning it around to expose the back of its skull. The blade punched through, and he let the body drop. The second one lunged at him, and he sidestepped, bringing the knife up in an arc that caught it under the jaw. The tip emerged from the top of its head, and it went limp. Santiago delivered one final vicious combo to the remaining zombie's head. Left jab to snap its head back, right cross to the temple, left hook to finish it. The creature's skull cracked on the final blow, and it collapsed. The bodies dropped to the floor in a heap, the duo staring them down for a moment to make sure they were down for the count. Neither moved. "So what do you say? You want to see what the haul is?" Connor asked. He wiped his blade clean on the shirt of one of the fallen zombies before sheathing it. The building was clear now, and it was time to see what they'd fought for. "Lead the way, my friend," Santiago said. The two men walked back to the stairwell, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. They descended down to the first floor, taking the stairs two at a time. The stairwell was concrete and metal, utilitarian in design. As they emerged through the door, they could see Naomi and Matt picking up bodies and placing them on flatbed handcarts. 3 carts were lined up near the office, already loaded with corpses. "Don't worry too much about that. We'll let the newcomers deal with the cleanup," Connor said. He appreciated the effort, but there was no need for them to exhaust themselves with grunt work. They'd done the hard part already. "I know, boss, but since we're going to be leaving Savannah here, I thought we'd be nice and at least get the corpses away from the office," Naomi said. She straightened up from loading another body, brushing her hands on her pants. Her face was flushed from the exertion, but she looked satisfied with the work. Connor thought about it for a moment before nodding in agreement. It was a thoughtful gesture, one that would make Savannah's stay here more bearable until others arrived. He motioned for Santiago to give him a hand, the two men grabbing bodies and tossing them onto the pile on one of the trio of nearby carts. The corpses were heavy, awkward to move, but they worked efficiently. As they finished piling the dead up, Savannah came out of the office carrying bottles of water and a large set of keys. The key ring was massive, dozens of keys hanging from it like a jailer's collection. She walked over to them, handing out the water bottles. "Thank you for doing that. Working here for as many years as I have, I've grown accustomed to weird smells. But there's something about those things that just put me off," Savannah said. "We can go ahead and roll them out, boss, if you want to go with Savannah," Naomi said. She took a long drink from her water bottle, the liquid disappearing quickly. Matt did the same, both of them clearly thirsty from the work. "Thank you, honey. There's a large trash chute on the far wall over there. It drops down into a dumpster. I know it ain't the most dignified burial, but it'll prevent you from having to go outside," Savannah said. She pointed down the hallway to where a metal door was visible in the distance. The building's layout made it easy to navigate, everything clearly marked. "Dumpster burial it is then," Matt said. Matt gave Naomi a head nod as they each grabbed a handcart, straining to get it moving. The wheels were reluctant at first, the weight of the bodies making them difficult to maneuver. But once the wheels got rolling, momentum took over. As they headed off down the hallway, Savannah dangled the keys in front of Connor's face. "I got the keys to the kingdom, honey. You want to go see what we got?" Savannah asked. Her earlier playful demeanor had returned now that the fighting was done. She seemed excited to show off what the building had to offer. "After you, ma'am," Connor said. Connor gave her a playful wink, causing her to blush as she led them down the hall. Santiago followed behind, curious to see what they'd secured. The hallway was long, stretching deep into the building. Storage unit doors lined both sides, each one secured with a heavy padlock. They walked for a solid minute as she studied the numbers on a sheet of paper, looking for the correct locker. The units were numbered sequentially, but some had been renumbered over the years, making navigation a bit confusing. She stopped finally, checking the paper one more time before looking up at the unit in front of them. "Okay, this is going to be locker number 1, Savannah said. Savannah reached down, unlocking it before motioning for the others to lift it up. The padlock came free with a click, and she tucked it into her pocket. Santiago graciously bent down to grab the handle, giving Savannah a chance to check out the goods. She glanced over to Connor, giving him an impressed look at Santiago's physique. The boxer's shirt was tight across his shoulders as he gripped the handle. Connor caught her expression and laughed. Santiago was oblivious as he opened up the unit, pulling the door upward. The metal rattled in its tracks as it rose. As the door reached the top, the interior light clicked on automatically, revealing stacks of goods that were nearly floor to ceiling. Cardboard boxes filled every available space, organized in neat rows. "That's a beautiful sight," Connor said. He stepped forward, reading some of the labels on the boxes. Canned goods, dried pasta, rice, beans, the essentials for keeping people fed. There had to be months' worth of food packed into this single unit. "This is a 14 by 14 unit, and it looks like they used every square inch," Savannah said. She peered inside, impressed by how efficiently the space had been utilized. The food bank had clearly known what they were doing when it came to storage. "How many more units are there?" Santiago asked. He was still holding the door up, looking at the sheer volume of supplies with appreciation. This was more food than he'd seen in one place since the outbreak began. "There's 9 more just like this, honey. Well, 9 more at least. I don't know if it's filled this full," Savannah said. "Even if they are half full, it is still a good start for a safe house," Santiago said. Connor nodded in agreement, already doing the math in his head. 10 units of food, even if some were less full, could sustain a large group for a very long time. This was exactly what they needed. "What about sleeping quarters?" Connor asked. He let the door roll back down, securing it once again. The food was secure, but people needed more than just meals. They needed places to sleep, to have privacy, to feel like they had a home. "That's a little trickier, but I think we can come up with something. I know for a fact there are 4 or 5 bachelor units in here," Savannah said. "Bachelor units?" Santiago asked. He looked confused by the term, not familiar with the concept. Connor had heard of them before, but never actually seen one. "Yeah, some people had them as little apartments. It's a lot cheaper than rent, and gave them a place to crash if they needed to," Savannah explained. She started walking down the hallway again, leading them further into the building. "It wasn't exactly legal, but as long as they kept quiet and paid the rent on time, we didn't care," Savannah said. "If I had to guess, there's bound to be some beds and couches in the units here too," Connor said. Storage facilities were full of furniture, people storing everything from bedroom sets to living room collections. It wouldn't be hard to outfit sleeping quarters with what was already in the building. "Oh, without a doubt, honey. I can't tell you how many of those storage locker buyers would pitch a fit when they'd get a unit and only find a cheap bedroom suit someone got at Supercenter. On the low side, I'd say we can easily set up 40, maybe 50 units with a comfortable place they can call their own," Savannah said. Connor reached into his pocket, grabbing his phone and pulling it out. The screen was cracked from some earlier impact, but it still worked. He started dialing up Midnight Mike, already thinking about the logistics of moving people in. "That's good to know. Now we just have to get people over here," Connor said. The phone rang for a few moments before Mike picked up. His voice came through the speaker, loud and energetic as always. "You got Midnight Mike," the DJ announced. "Are we on the air?" Connor asked. "No, sir, we are not. What's on your mind?" Mike asked. "It's Connor," Connor said. "Oh, hey, man, what did you think of the safe house?" Mike asked. The excitement in his voice was clear. Mike had been working hard to connect survivors with resources, and every successful safe house was a victory. "I think it's perfect. We just got it secure," Connor said. "That's awesome news, man," Mike said. There was genuine happiness in his tone, the kind that came from knowing lives were going to be saved. Connor could hear papers rustling in the background, Mike already looking through his notes. "I have a list of people nearby who are going to be happy to get out of where they are," Mike said. "Do you have any people who can handle themselves on that list?" Connor asked. They needed bodies to defend the place, not just refugees who needed protection. The balance was important. "Yeah, I got a couple. They just need help getting out the front door," Mike said. Before Connor could continue, another call came in. The phone buzzed in his hand, showing an incoming call notification. He looked at the number, seeing that it was Oliver. That was unusual. The kid usually didn't call unless something was wrong. "Mike, I gotta take this," Connor said. "Do what you gotta do, man. I'm not going anywhere," Mike said. "I'll be in touch," Connor said. Connor clicked the phone over, switching to the incoming call. Santiago and Savannah had stopped walking, noticing the concerned expression on Connor's face. "Oliver, is everything okay?" Connor asked. Rather than Oliver's voice coming through, it was Sophia's. She sounded panicked, her words coming fast and breathless. "Connor, you have to come quick. We're in trouble." Chapter 8. Connor sped through the streets, Santiago in the passenger seat as Naomi and Matt held on for dear life in the back of the truck. The vehicle bounced over debris and abandoned belongings scattered across the pavement. He weaved in and out through zombies that shambled in his path, not wanting to slow down. The creatures reached out as they passed, but Connor kept the accelerator pressed to the floor. It took longer than he would have liked to get back to the restaurant, but eventually it came into view. The sight forced him to slam on the brakes a block before reaching it. The tires squealed, leaving black marks on the asphalt as the truck skidded to a stop. "Mother of God, what in the hell happened here?" Matt asked. Matt spoke through the back window as everyone looked towards the restaurant. His voice was tight with shock at what they were seeing. The outer perimeter of cars had been breached in one spot. 2 vehicles had been pushed out of the way just far enough to create an opening. The gap was maybe 6 feet wide, but it was enough. 60 to 70 zombies were swarming the area, trying to get through, with at least a dozen having managed to breach. The creatures inside the perimeter were clawing at the restaurant door, pressing against the glass. On top of one of the cars stood Oliver, who was putting up a fight with his spear. The young man was fighting a 2-front battle, delivering a killing blow to one of the creatures outside the perimeter, before switching it up and taking one out inside. He moved with desperation, stabbing and pulling the weapons free, then stabbing again. His letterman's jacket was torn, blood splattered across the white sleeves. "What do we do, boss?" Naomi asked. Connor studied the situation for a moment, his mind racing through options. They needed to help Oliver, but charging straight in would get them surrounded. He made his decision quickly. Connor cut the wheel hard to the left, speeding down the next street. The truck accelerated, putting distance between them and the horde. Before turning to the right, he pushed the vehicle faster. The tires squealed as they skidded on the pavement, the truck drifting through the turn. As the wheels caught traction, they were propelled forward, racing down the street, coming alongside the restaurant from a different angle. Rather than go up to it, Connor kept them stationary as he delivered his instructions. The engine idled, ready to move on his command. "Naomi, Matt, I'm going to pull alongside the barricade. When I do, I want you to jump over and go help Oliver," Connor said. "What are you going to do?" Matt asked. "I'm going to plow through the horde and give you some breathing room," Connor said. "That's psychotic, boss. I love it," Naomi said. Naomi slid her baseball bat in through the open window, handing it forward to Connor. The aluminum was cool to the touch, the handle wrapped in tape for better grip. "Take this. It isn't going to run out of bullets," Naomi said. Connor nodded as he hit the gas, speeding up to the outer edge of the barricade. The truck closed the distance in seconds. Both Naomi and Matt jumped over as the vehicle pulled alongside, their spears in hand. They landed on top of the stationary vehicles with heavy thuds, the metal roofs denting slightly under their weight. As soon as they were stable, they began running towards Oliver to lend a hand. Their footsteps echoed as they moved from car to car. Connor revved the engine a couple of times, the sound loud and aggressive. He stared ahead at the horde that was clamoring around the gap in the barricade. The zombies were packed tight, pushing against each other in their eagerness to get inside. "I'm going to plow through them, then try and back up to plug the hole. When we're on the other side of them, I want you to jump out and get over the barricade. Start picking off anything you can," Connor said. "What about you?" Santiago asked. "I'm going to get into the back and start cracking heads," Connor said. Santiago nodded, reaching up and grabbing the handle above the door for stability. He braced himself against the seat as Connor slammed on the gas. The truck picked up speed quickly, racing towards the horde. The speedometer climbed as they closed the gap. Connor gripped the wheel tightly as the front end of the truck made contact with the zombies. Bodies slammed against the grill and bumper, the impacts reverberating through the vehicle. They decelerated quickly, the mass of the ghouls causing the vehicle trouble. It was like driving through deep mud, the resistance slowing them down. Despite that, they managed to cut through 15 of them. Bodies flew through the air, tumbling like rag dolls. Some went over the hood, others off to the sides. They slammed hard on the pavement ahead, bones breaking on impact. The windshield cracked from a body rolling across it, spiderweb patterns spreading across the glass. As they cleared the horde, Connor slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. The truck rocked on its suspension. Santiago moved swiftly without being prompted. He threw open the door and jumped out, his chains already raised and ready. He landed in a crouch, immediately focusing his attention on a downed ghoul just a few feet from him. The creature was trying to get up, its movements uncoordinated. Santiago stepped forward and punched it in the back of the head, his chain-wrapped fist cracking the skull. The zombie went still. Connor threw the truck into reverse, rolling over a few more creatures who stepped up to fill the gap made by the truck. The vehicle bounded about as it ran over bodies, the tires crushing bone and flesh. The suspension groaned under the strain. The truck came to a stop in the middle of the opening, blocking it with the vehicle's bulk. Connor looked out through the front windshield, watching as Santiago punched out another zombie before diving over the hood of a car. The boxer's form was perfect, rolling across the metal surface before sliding down to the interior of the parking lot. He landed on his feet, already turning to face the next threat. "Let's do this," Connor said. Connor moved about in the cab of the truck, positioning himself by the back window. The space was tight, not designed for someone his size to squeeze through. It took a moment of maneuvering to push through, but he managed to get into the bed of the truck. He had to turn sideways, forcing his shoulders through the opening before pulling his legs after him. He stood tall, bat in hand, looking over to the barricade where Matt, Naomi, and Oliver were continuing to deliver kill shots with their spears. They worked in unison, stabbing down at the zombies that were reaching up at them. The three of them had fallen into a rhythm, covering each other's blind spots. Inside the barricade, Santiago danced around a duo of creatures, punching away like he was doing some light sparring. His footwork was textbook, keeping him just out of reach while he set up his shots. Left jab, right cross, step back. The zombies couldn't keep up with his speed. Connor looked down at the creatures that were reaching up for him, their arms stretched toward the truck bed, fingers grasping at empty air. He got a firm grip on the bat before swinging it down, the barrel connecting with the top of a head. The skull crushed under the impact, the zombie dropping to the ground. Another one pressed forward to take its place, and Connor swung again. The bat came down in a wide arc, building momentum before it connected. Another kill. He found his rhythm, moving along the truck bed to reach different angles. Swing, connect, kill, repeat. The zombies kept coming, drawn by the noise and the presence of living flesh. Connor worked methodically, taking them down one at a time. His arms burned from the exertion, but he didn't slow down. On the barricade, the others were doing the same, their weapons rising and falling in constant motion. It took the better part of 15 minutes for the group to finish off the entirety of the mob. The parking lot was littered with bodies, blood pooling on the pavement. Everybody stood fast and looking in every direction for more trouble, weapons ready. The moaning had stopped, replaced by heavy breathing from the fighters. Much to everyone's relief, no more zombies came. Once the situation was secure, Connor jumped down to the ground. His boots splashed in a puddle of dark liquid that he chose not to think about. He walked over to the opening in the barricade, inspecting the two cars that were moved out of place. On both vehicles, there were signs of an obvious crash. The sides were dented in, the metal crumpled where something had struck them hard. There were skid marks on the ground where the tires had been forced across the pavement, black streaks showing the path they had taken. "Oliver, what in the hell happened here?" Connor asked. The once confident young man was shell-shocked, his face pale and drawn. He took a moment to step down from the barricade, moving carefully like his legs might give out. He didn't speak until Connor walked over to him, seeing that something was wrong beyond just the zombie attack. "This is important, Oliver. What happened?" Connor said. Before he could answer, the front door of the restaurant opened up. Sophia rushed out towards her boyfriend, her face streaked with tears. "My God, baby, are you okay?" Sophia asked. Sophia wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly. Oliver buried his face in her shoulder, his body shaking. Connor gave them a moment, sensing that they needed it. He looked at her closer, seeing that her shirt was covered in blood. Fresh blood, still wet and glistening. "Sophia, are you hurt?" Connor asked. She was confused by the question before stepping back and looking at her bloody attire. Recognition dawned on her face, and she shook her head. No. You need to come inside, Sophia said. Connor nodded, walking with the young couple towards the restaurant as he issued orders over his shoulder. Get that barricade put back together, and keep a watch out for anything that might be a threat, Connor called out. The other 3 members of his team nodded and went to work. Santiago grabbed a chain from the truck bed, while Matt and Naomi assessed the damaged vehicles. Connor followed the couple into the restaurant, stopping in disbelief at the entrance. The scene inside made his stomach drop. 4 people were laying on the ground, bleeding. 2 of them were lifeless, covered up by tablecloths. The white fabric was stained red, soaked through in places. The other 2 were being tended to by survivors, people pressing rags against wounds to stop the bleeding. I need to know what happened, right now, Connor said. His voice was sharp, commanding. This wasn't a zombie attack. This was something else entirely. Sophia grabbed Oliver's hand, giving it a squeeze. The gesture seemed to give him the ability to speak again. He took a shaky breath. There were people, a couple truckloads of them. They came to the restaurant demanding all of our food, Oliver said. Who were these people? Connor asked. I don't know. They weren't military, but they looked like soldiers, Oliver said. His voice was hollow, distant. He was clearly replaying the events in his mind. What did they do? Connor asked. They demanded our food, and one of the other guards said no. They didn't ask again. Instead, they opened fire. They were all hit. One of them pushed me to the ground. It's the only reason I didn't get shot, Oliver said. Oliver choked up a bit as he looked over to one of the men with a tablecloth over his head. The shape underneath was unmistakable, knowing that the man had given his life to protect him. Oliver took a deep breath before continuing. Once they got done shooting, one of them said that they'd let the zombies do the work for them, and that they'd be back later to collect what was theirs, Oliver said. They used one of the trucks to push the cars out of the way. All the gunshots drew those things to us, Sophia added. Her voice was thick with anger and fear, the combination making her words sharp. After they drove off, I ran back out there, doing what I could to keep those things away from the restaurant. I did everything I could, Oliver said. Oliver began to break down, tears streaming down his face as Sophia comforted him. She held him close, whispering that it wasn't his fault. Who would do this? Sophia asked. Connor let out a deep sigh, a sinking feeling pushing into his gut. He'd hoped to avoid this, hoped that things wouldn't escalate to violence between survivors. But hope didn't mean much in this new world. Take care of him. I'll be right back, Connor said. Connor stepped outside, walking over to the barricade. Matt was using a chain attached to the truck to pull the cars back into position. The metal groaned as it was dragged across the pavement. He stopped when he saw their leader walking over, concern written on his face. You all right, boss? Naomi asked. No, I'm not, Connor said. Connor stopped to collect himself for a moment as everyone drew closer. Santiago, Naomi, and Matt formed a semicircle around him, waiting for him to speak. I was afraid this day might come, and now that it has, we're going to have a fight on our hands, Connor said. Who would want to fight us? Matt asked. Connor looked at each of them in turn, making sure they understood the seriousness of what he was about to say. I need to tell you all about Sammy Torino. The end.